Uncharted 4: A Thief's End is a story-driven action-adventure game by NaughtyDog. In it, you play as Nathan Drake, a now-retired treasure hunter who lives happily with his wife Elena. That is until your thought to be dead brother comes to you for help. My name's Globku, and today on TGN we bring you our official review of Uncharted 4. The story of the Uncharted games has been a big focal point over the series. Uncharted 4's story is better than its predecessors in every way. When I first heard they were introducing a new character, Sam Drake, the protagonist's brother, it felt forced. This character had never been mentioned in an Uncharted game before, and it sounds like someone who would have come up in a conversation or two in the previous games. However, seeing how it was justified and executed on screen, it all actually felt very natural. Sam tags along with Nate in a number of missions, during which you get the opportunity to hear them trade one-liners or just giving each other a hard time, as brothers usually do, and he quickly became one of the characters that I cared about the most in the series. The voice acting is phenomenal as well. Sam Drake is one of Troy Baker's finest works, which really helped me bond with the character. There are some other new characters, acquaintances, new villains that are really believable too, especially Rafe. He's a much more believable antagonist than any of the previous ones, who were just full of evil intent. This one's motivations are easier to understand and grasp, and just feel like a better fit for the Uncharted setting. The protagonist, Nathan Drake, feels more human than ever, not so much like a wisecracking killing machine, but more so of a character with real-life struggles after presumably retiring at the end of Uncharted 3. In fact, the overall story is a lot more character-focused. There's still a treasure hunt going on, but this time the characters really question how much they're willing to risk for the prize, and the answer differs depending on who you ask that question. It has an heartfelt tone that perhaps wasn't present in the previous games, and I love the game even more for it. The narrative evolves in very interesting ways. There's a lot in Uncharted 4 that we first saw in The Last of Us. Not only do you have the traditional cutscenes, but characters also interact with each other all the time, even more than the previous games. Sometimes you're just exploring and driving and you'll just hear the characters talking to each other, sometimes directly related to the plot, or maybe just reminiscing about the past, telling stories to each other, and it all adds character to the plot. Overall, I thought the pacing was really good. There were a couple of chapters that perhaps overstay their welcome, but nothing too egregious to retract from my experience. It's a damn good story. But the narrative just by itself wouldn't be all that if not for the technology present in this game. Graphically, it is gorgeous. Character models are amazing, with facial expressions sometimes revealing more than a character's lines. It is by far the best looking game I've ever seen on a console. I don't know what kind of wizardry Naughty Dog has pulled again, because no other console game comes close to this. When outdoors, the water, the muddy roads, the foliage all looks incredible, and the game constantly presents you with breathtaking vistas. And while indoors, the game reminded me once again of The Last of Us, where you can look into a room and immediately put a story together based on the objects that you see lying around. There's a handcrafted attention to detail here, even in areas that are completely optional and most players will never see, that is just unprecedented. The single player portion of the game runs at a gorgeous 1080p, and with these looks, honestly, the 30 frames per second are not a problem. But let's talk gameplay. There are plenty of new additions to the Uncharted formula. First, you now have a rope, which is used a lot throughout the campaign. You will use it to clear large gaps during platforming sections and even in combat by landing on an enemy, punching him in the face and grabbing his gun out of the air. No matter how many times I did this, I always had a smile on my face. There's also driving this time around. I believe we've all seen the Jeep in a couple of demos, but there are some other surprises waiting for you. The driving is competent. It's not like this is a professional racing game, so the controls don't need to be too tight. They are good enough for what the game asks you to do, just don't expect to become the Drift King in Uncharted 4. The platforming has received improvements not only with the use of the rope, but at some point you also unlock the Python that you can stick in certain walls to create a new handhold. But what really impressed me the most was just the level of control that you had over Nate's arms. Using the left stick, you can precisely move Nathan's hand wherever you want, and it just feels great. Unfortunately, this being Uncharted, instead of carefully placing your hand where you should, you can just jump from handhold to handhold, which is actually a faster and more efficient way of traversing the level. So on one hand, it's a great technology that I'd love to see implemented on other games, but on the other, most players are just gonna jump all the time to traverse faster, and this feature won't get the credit it deserves. The shooting feels a lot better this time around. Enemies didn't feel bullet spongy. For the first time ever, I didn't turn the difficulty to easy after getting annoyed about shooting the same guy for 5 minutes. The game also gives you an option to snap your reticle to your targets. It's a very aggressive auto aim system system that I really wouldn't recommend. It just takes away whatever challenge this game has to offer, but it's there as an option in case you want it. Stealth has been greatly improved, enemy patrols are more fluid and believable, and not stale like the previous games. There's an awareness meter that fills up before an enemy actually spots you, and if they lose sight of you, they'll go into an investigative state and you can resume your stealth takedowns. You can also mark your enemies. It's not a full-blown stealth game because it's missing the gadgets and the distractions, but it's a massive step forward in a field this series really needed. I found myself using stealth every time I could, and you don't need to worry about your AI companions. Again, like The Last of Us, they could bump into the enemy and they won't be detected. Detection only works on you, the player. Hand-to-hand combat has changed a bit as well. You no longer have a counter-attack button, instead you just smash square to attack your enemies and hit circle to roll away from punches. There's also a lot more contextual action happening this time around, smashing enemies into walls, being grabbed and about to die when one of your friends comes in and saves you, or your friends grab someone and wait for you to finish them off. It felt like a great action movie. On the other hand, if you're the type of player who likes to clear events without getting hit once, that might be a tougher challenge this time around. After all, action movie protagonists always take a couple of punches before winning a fight. The puzzles are really the weak link on this one. Most of them simply require you to move a box from one place to another, and when it's something more elaborate, it's nothing that gets close to what we had in previous entries. They felt brainless and uninspired, just another task to do before moving on with the story, not challenging at all. So if this was your favorite part about these games, I think you'll be disappointed. And of course, it wouldn't be an Uncharted game without the big set pieces. It's hard to talk about this because what's so great about them so often is the element of surprise, so I'll just say that there are a few callbacks to some of our favorite set pieces of the previous Uncharted games, and that there are also plenty of new ones. So many of them, really. The game is full of big set piece moments. Explosions, crumbling buildings, collapsing bridges, it's got it all. And it's just better than ever, and you're gonna have to take my word for it, cause saying any more would be spoiling the surprise. Uncharted 4 is the best Uncharted game in the series, a fitting end for a great franchise. Its visual improvements, new characters, new ways to tell the story, and the gameplay enhancements make this game an instant classic that I won't soon forget. It's not a perfect game, but everything I didn't like about it just feels like such a pet peeve compared to the fun that I had, that I just feel it's not worth getting into it. I'd just be nitpicking stuff. If you like the Uncharted games, pick this one up. If you're a fan of action-adventure games, pick this one up. It sets a new bar for games in this genre, and it is undoubtedly a very fulfilling action campaign. That's our review for Uncharted 4. Have you played the game yet? Let us know your thoughts about it in the comments below. While you're down there, click the like button if you enjoyed the video and subscribe to TGN if you haven't already. I've been Globku, thank you for watching. Boy.